Hi guys, this is Mark. In this video, I will discuss the Object Update API. This API enables you to modify one or more properties of an object in the database. This is different than storing a new object because with an update, it is expected that the object is already in the database. For the objects that are already stored in the database, they have object ID assigned to them. An object ID, as we discussed previously, it is a unique value that identifies that record in a specific table that uniquely identifies an object. So with the API, whenever you reference an object that you are updating, the value that you're sending to the database would have to be an object, and at the very minimum, it would need to have object ID with the value assigned to the object ID property, and at least one property that you want to store. And whatever you're sending in, those properties that you referenced will overwrite the property values that already exist in the database. And that's how Object Update works. In most cases, whenever you use that API, the object that you're modifying will already be loaded on the client side. And in most of the use cases, that's exactly how it works. You do a retrieval of products or orders or users, and then the user would select a record or an object in the UI and say, okay, well, I will be updating that order or updating that user account or whatever entity that you're working with. So I will demonstrate here how to use this API in Backendless Console with REST Console, and I will also demonstrate how that API can be used in UI Builder with Codeless, but the same way you would be using that API if you are coding with any of our SDKs. So here in Backendless Console, we will be working with the product table. Of course, you can modify any of the properties here in Data Browser. These modifications that you do right here, they do not use the API. So here, if I change this rating from 10 to 1, and that record is updated, we use our internal built-in API in Backendless, and that is not an API call. This is more of a management call. However, your applications would be using the actual API to make that change. So let me demonstrate it at the REST level first. I'll be switching to REST Console, and let's retrieve some records. And let's say we want to modify this object right here. So I will copy that JSON object, paste it into the request body. Notice that it has object ID. Let me find it right here. This is the object ID. So we could actually remove many or all properties and keep just the object ID. So for instance, I want to change rating here in this object. As long as there is object ID, any other property that is referenced, let's say we change this from 4.6 to 5. And by saving this object back in the database, the rating will be updated and the new value will be 5. So here by clicking put will be updating that object. There you go, now it is saved, and as we can see, the rating is now 5. So this was an update call that used the Object Update API. If you were to click Post is responsible for creating new entries. So let's just, for the experiment sake, click Post, and notice that we're getting an error that says duplicate entry 1 for primary key. It means that this attempted to create a new object, and this object ID was already taken. As a result, new record could not be created because it conflicted with an existing record. However, doing put request doesn't update. In this case, I'm updating an object, but the value doesn't change because it is already 5. So Backendless doesn't really check if any of the values have changed or not. It just takes whatever you send, and those values will be overriding what's already in the database. Let me demonstrate this with a more practical example of modifying a record using Codeless. So for this, I will switch to UI Builder. And let's create a new page by using a template from the marketplace that already has everything you need to see how Object Update would work. So move the mouse over this area, click New Page, switch to Marketplace, and this is the template that you will need to use. It says Lecture 25 or Object Update API lecture. Here in the thumbnail, you will see it says Object Update API. Let's give it a name. Let's call it Object Update and click Create. So now the page is created, and let's first of all just run it and see how it works, and then we will take a look at the logic behind this page. So let's run this in preview. What this page does is it retrieves first 100 products from the product table and lists them right here in the UI. You can select any one of these, and then when you select, the individual properties that can be updated are rendered in this form, and then the object that you have selected, as you can see, there is a little border around that row, and it indicates the actual selected object. So let's click this one, and for instance, let's change price from 45.22 to 46. And notice, just because of how UI Builder works, I modified 46 right here, and it instantly updated in this table. It already shows 46. And then by clicking Update, it commits that change to the database. So now in the database, we have 46. And this way, you can modify any of these properties. Let's take a look at the request on the wire. So right-click, go to Inspect, and then select Network. That will show the network traffic. Again, let's select a record. Let's say it is going to be this one, and let's change rating to 4. Click Update, and this is the put request to update that record. In the payload, you will see this is the body of the request that was sent to the server, and then here we have rating set to 4. So that's the request that goes to the server, and then the response we got, this is the object that was updated with the new modified rating. So it's very simple. Let's see what the logic looks like behind this page. First of all, on the actual page logic, if we go select the page and go to the logic, this is where we retrieve first 100 records from the product table. Then whenever a record is selected, and for this, I believe if we select the actual row, this is the template in the repeater. So click this row and go into the logic. Then in the onClick event, this is what happens. We take the current object that is represented by this products repeater data item, and we put it into page data in the property selected product. Then in the actual form, let's select the form, click the logic for the form, and you will see that the form model logic is selected product. So whenever I put that object into page data, then the form is bound to the property, and then through data binding, I can render individual properties in the form. Also in here, you will see that this is the submit event. So this event is triggered whenever you click this update button. What happens is we use this block, and this is the block that actually performs object update in Backendless. Since the object that we're manipulating comes directly from the database, it already has object ID. So we don't need to do anything about populating object ID. It is there. And then whenever individual fields in the form are updated, so the user enters new value, it directly through data binding, again, modifies this underlying object that sits in the data model of the form. So then you modify all the fields, and then this form data, which is the data model for the form, that's the actual object we're modifying, we use it right here to use as the object that is being sent to the server. And then simply just by using this block, we know that the object will be updated in the database. So it's a very straightforward way of working with the data that you have on the screen and then sending it back with any changes to the server. So this page template could be rather useful, not only for the mechanism to update data, but for various rendering functions, such as you can see right here, this is kind of an in-page scroll, and the form stays on the top of the screen. So this mechanism, this paradigm, could be used in a number of applications whenever you need to have that specific layout and rendering. But that's all I have for you as far as Object Update. I hope you found this video useful. Thank you for watching, and as always, happy coding.